In today's video, we're going to be making I guess the technical term for it would be like a blanket shelf or a blanket ladder. My wife was needing one for the living room and gave me the idea to run with and see what I can come up with. The general idea and layout of it's not going to be too hard or difficult, but what I'm going to be using for material today is a long stringer from a pallet and then the slats. See if I can get away with just doing 100% pallet wood yet again. So I'm going to go through, and it needs to hold an alright amount of like sturdiness to it, but it doesn't need to have like lag bolts, and I'm not going to be using it as a ladder. So what we'll do is rip this in two and plane down both sides of it, so this will be the sides of the ladder. And then I'm going to be using the slat boards, and I will also rip these down to the dead center and have just about inch or so or inch and a half of a little bit of a slat. That will be what the actual blankets will drape on. I'm going to plane these and smooth these out so none of the little furs on them or anything will grab the blankets themselves, and I will make sure that they are just thick enough to hold a screw, but I don't need them to be like super thick. Like I said, this isn't going to be a structural ladder at all. It's just going to be something for decoration and a nice place to put blankets for the house. So we're going to go through, rip these down, rip this guy down, and then it'll be Lucy, you got some planing to do. I'll be going through and making them all nice and smooth. So without further ado, let's get going on this project and see how it turns out. Alright, and there it is. So, I know what a few will probably say was, why did I choose such a dark stain? This is ebony stain. Reason being is that all of our furniture in our house is black. So it's kind of one of those things that if I wanted to make a super, like, piece, I could have, but it wouldn't fit the rest of the decorum. So going off of that, that's the reason why I was very happy to utilize my ebony stain. So I can still get some little bit of tones, and this will lighten up. Because currently, this is right after I stained it. I wiped it down a few times with dry rags as well to try to like pull some of the extra bits out. But once the wood absorbs a lot of this, it'll get a lot lighter. And then it'll be just enough of a lightish tone of ebony and not so absolutely just looks like I spray painted it kind of look, that it'll actually kind of fit perfectly. So I'm excited. In person, it looks really good. On camera, I'm not 100% sure if you guys can quite see the tone and a lot of the texture that's in the wood. I pulled a lot of the wood grain out, and I'm real excited and real happy with it. So this has been a quick little throw together. Total dimensions is 5 foot from the top to the bottom, and then when you angle it, it's a little less, of course. The miter on the back isn't anything super crazy, like, oh, it's not exactly a 45, it's not exactly like a 35 or 25 or any of that. I laid it against the wall to what seemed to be proper for what it needed for dimensioning. I took one of these extra rungs, I laid it on the wall, and then made a mark. And that gave me my line to just cut both sides to. The miter wouldn't fit, so it's not between a 0 and a 45, it's a little bit more outward, more obtuse. And so what I needed to do with that is I ran it through the bandsaw off camera. Reason being was I had a few things around my bandsaw, couldn't quite make it look good for filming, to be honest. So I real quickly just ran those 2 cuts through, and other than that, I went through and sanded it a little bit more smooth, rounded the edges on the back so it won't do any marring on the wall as it leans against it, and then I matched this dimension to each of these rungs. So if you were to make this yourself, it's pretty simple and straightforward. Once you have your 2 sides, just lean it against the wall the desired amount. The reason that it took a second longer was how fluffy the blankets are going to be that are going to go on here. And I'll let this finish up, and then tomorrow I'll have kind of a pan over shot of it in place, so that way you guys can see how that looks with the blankets on it and see why we chose to do what we did. We'll have 4 blankets on it. The bottom rung will just be exposed, so that way you can kind of help keep the other blanket in line, and then each one of these follows that miter that we were able to go through and choose. So if you're going to replicate this, that's why I don't really involve putting those in, because you might want it farther out in the room, you might want it up higher. If you're doing just basic hand towels, not thick blankets that we would have in use for the house that are all like plush, that is also going to change the way that it lays. So that's one of the main reasons I didn't really say that at all. Otherwise, each of the rungs are 14 inches on the inside, and then it's about 1.5 inches on the outside. A little bit less because of the cuts. And then I went through, as you saw earlier in the time lapse, and planed all 4 sides of each board. So that way everything has a nice, perfect, flush look to it. I left all the 90s on here. I actually really enjoy the look of it. I was contemplating about rounding the edges on everything, but since none of this is going to be consistently grabbed, you're just removing and putting on a blanket, the 90s work a little bit better to help hold the fabric in place, is my thought process, instead of rounding everything. Its own weight will hold it on here, but it'll kind of help keep it from moving at all, just having that little bit of an extra friction point. And then as for the rest of it, it just visually looks nice, in my opinion, going this way. You can round it, but this gave me a perfect dimension to where this is a perfect square, and these aren't perfect squares, of course, but each of the edges are like perfect to them, and I just really enjoy the look of it. So yeah, all that to say, it is finally done. I can throw it in the house. The missus should be happy, and it should go along with our decorum quite nicely. So thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully you'll like it. If you did, please hit the like button and the subscription button as well if you are not subscribed, because that helps. Every one of those subscriptions helps greatly, and we're closer and closer every day to that good old 1,000 mark. And once we hit that, we'll see if we want to keep going and keep expanding on the subscription count. But once we hit 1,000, that's when I get monetized. So I thank each and every one of you so much for helping that be more and more of a possibility here in the next month or two of getting that much closer to monetization. Last I looked, as of when this video is going to get uploaded, it looks like we are at 883 subscribers. Thank you all so much for that. If you haven't hit the notification bell yet, please hit that notification bell. It gives you the not only subscription, but it also gives you the notification every time that I upload a video. And if you enjoy them and keep watching them, that helps too. So thank you very much, and leave a comment Let me know your thoughts and opinions, and if there's any questions that you had over this, or any ideas that you have for a future build or something that you're doing as well. I also enjoy answering those questions. So thank you all so very much, and hopefully you guys will have a very good day.